Hey, it is an unstoppable day. It's your boy, Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge. And you know, if it is a Tuesday night, it's the Unstoppable Stories Show with Terrence Leffridge. Come on in, swipe and share. Come on in, swipe and share. You are in for another inspiring, exciting, fun-filled episode of the Unstoppable Stories Show, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. As I said, I'm your host, Terrence, the Unstoppable Coach Leffridge with Unstoppable Coaching Services, and we help you not only create your vision, we help you implement your vision, but more importantly, we hold you accountable to living the life that you were created to live. So come on in, swipe and share. We look forward to sharing another exciting show with you this evening. And as always, if you are joining us here on the show, you know what we like you to do. We like you to go ahead and put that number 1 in the feed. If you are watching us live, put number 2 in the feed if you're watching us on replay. Hopefully you're watching us either on my Facebook channel, my personal page, or on the Unstoppable Stories Facebook page. And if you're on that Unstoppable Stories page, why don't you just go ahead and like it and subscribe to that page. That's where you can catch all the episodes, the past episodes of the Unstoppable Stories Show. And you could also DM me so that you may be the next guest on the Unstoppable Stories Show. So guys, thank you for joining in. You know what? It is, again, another Tuesday night, and each and every week, as we say here on the Unstoppable Stories Show, there is something that happens, something tries to stop this show from living up to its name. And once again, it has happened where our guest was caught in construction on her way to making it to the show. So she's a little bit behind, but we are going to actually have her on the show. I do see her in the lobby, in the break room, in the green room, the unstoppable green room. So let's give her a chance to get something to drink, get some of them scrimps and crawfish that we have down there in the green room, and then she can come on up and join us. And then that'll just give me an opportunity to, again, express to you guys about this event that is coming up in June here in Chicago. If you are in the Chicagoland area, then I definitely want you to join us for the next book launch, the next exciting book launch from Unstoppable Publishing. That is the book launch of the great Lady Rochelle Matheny and her cancer warriors. In the book, When warriors talk, God listens. Yes, yes, yes. This is going to be a phenomenal book coming out on June 22nd here in Chicago. So you definitely need to have your face in the place for this event when we unveil this powerful book of 5 women who are in different stages of their cancer journey, but they are being transparent, they are being vulnerable, and they are allowing you to step into their journey and see what it's like to either be a cancer survivor, someone who has made it through and is not just in remission, but is released and healed and moving forward with their life, or someone who's thriving, someone who's still going through that cancer journey, still getting up every day and going to those treatments, still putting on the brave front and still living their life, not just existing, but thriving despite what little C is trying to do to their life. Or maybe you're a co-survivor. Maybe you are a family. Maybe you are a friend. Maybe you are an associate of somebody who has either gone through and you've gone through this journey with them, or you are going through with them on this journey right now. It's a powerful book. I definitely say it is a must read, but I'm a little partial to that myself. But you definitely want to see and hear these powerful stories. We're going to be doing the book launch here on June 22nd here in Chicago. All you have to do is go to the link bit.ly/when warriors talk, bit.ly/when warriors talk, and you can register to have your face in the place on June 22nd for the exciting launch of When Warriors Talk, God Listens. Look at that title. Look at that book cover. Look at that warrior, that strong female warrior. And trust me, these stories, they are going to make you inspired. They're going to have you educated, but more importantly, they're going to let you see that, once again, like we always say on the Unstoppable Stories show, if they can do it, if they can walk through the journey, if they can continue to survive and thrive despite the little C in their life, then maybe, just maybe, you can too. So we look forward to seeing you. Go ahead and register at bit.ly/when warriors talk, and you can get more information about the upcoming book launch. And, I just have to give a personal testimony. I learned a lot through helping with this book come together, this book anthology by Lady Rochelle and all the other powerful warriors that are in this book. Never did I recognize, and here's going to be a nugget for you. Here's going to be a nugget for somebody who might be going through something right now. Sometimes we never know why God puts us in the situations that he puts us into. Sometimes it is for a season. Sometimes it's for a reason. Sometimes it's just for a period in our life. Sometimes it's to put a point in our life. And just as God would have it, he didn't just have me on this project with these ladies just because I'm a publisher and they love Unstoppable Publishing. But I too find myself again being in that role of being a co-survivor with a family member. Getting a new diagnosis just this past week. So hopefully you guys will continue to pray for me and pray for my family as we go through this journey of the little C in our lives again. Give me the strength and give me the foundation to be the support that my family member needs as they go through this journey. Hopefully you will continue to lift me up and build me up so that I can continue to lift them up and build them up. Thank you so much in advance for that. Because here's the one thing I know. When the praises go up, yeah, the blessings come down. And that just segues me into our phenomenal guest this week on the Unstoppable Stories show. She's got a powerful story of recovery and redemption, and she knows a little bit about what goes up. Okay, so let me give you a brief introduction to tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is this phenomenal, power-packed woman by the name of Mistie Layne out of Lake Charles, Louisiana. You know, she started out on a path towards becoming a surgeon, and she was living a seemingly wonderful life with a husband and 2 kids. But then she was blindsided. How many of y'all know about being blindsided? If you do, just holler, keep your hand to yourself. You know, we recognize you. But she was blindsided by adultery and abandonment. And then her life spiraled down into depression, self-doubt, and addiction. Cocaine now became her new best friend for 10 years. But it ultimately landed her in prison after a tragic accident which resulted in the loss of life of somebody else when she thought it should have been her. But that's not the end of the story. Thank God that is not the end of the story, because this woman has come back. She took time while she was incarcerated. She had a little bit of talk with Jesus, and she had a little bit of written talk with herself. She was able to write down her thoughts on paper, and all those thoughts turned into a manuscript of this phenomenal book that you see in my hands right now called What Goes Up, a powerful story of redemption, overcoming your worst to live your best. And now she is a motivational speaker, and she is looking to make an impact on the lives of each and every person that she comes in contact with. And tonight we are going to release her to the Unstoppable Stories audience, because I know she's going to make an impact on you as well. So without further ado, let's welcome to the stage this powerful woman, the one, the only, Mistie Layne. Mic check, mic check.
Hey, Terrence. Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm good. After hearing you say all that, I was like, dang. Hey, I'm blessed. I am blessed.
Well, you are. You know, I couldn't say it if it wasn't true. So go ahead and accept, you know, what you've gone through and what you're going through and what you're about to go through, because you know what they say, it gets greater later, and you are on a great ride right now, wouldn't you say?
I do. I would say yes, I would.
Well, welcome to the Unstoppable Story Show. And with everything that I had already said, I cannot introduce you better than you can introduce yourself. So why don't you take a second to introduce yourself to the Unstoppable Stories audience, Mistie?
Well, I'm Mistie Layne, just as you said earlier. The only thing I would like to add to that is that looking back at everything, I like to look at life forward, not backward. And it's about what you make of your mistakes. That's the way I look at it. It's not letting them hold you down or hold you back. It's what you've learned from them and what you do with it moving forward. So I think everyone's story, we all have that pen and we can write our own ending.
Absolutely. I love what you said there. That's so powerful. And you seem like such a humble person, and you have so many things to be grateful for. And you've gone through a lot. And what we like to do on the Unstoppable Story Show is, well, we don't just want to talk about the beautiful you that sits in front of us and is gracing our screen right now. We want to talk about the story that got you to where you are right now, in hopes of reaching another Mistie. There's a young Mistie out there that might be about to encounter some of the things that you've already gone through. So we want to have her hear your story so that it might change her story, so that she might have a better story after she hears your story. So let's start out by this. Let's start out by asking you the question that I ask everybody who graces the stage of the Unstoppable Stories Show. Mistie, when you hear the word unstoppable, what does that mean to you?
For me, it's God-driven. I feel I went through everything I did with purpose and on purpose. And I believe God has me on a mission, and I'm just along for the journey. And who's going to stop God's mission, right?
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you know what? This is the first time we've had a chance to talk to each other in person, but you say some things in some of your other interviews and on your Next Impactor videos, your sizzle reel, which is beautiful. And you guys, she's gonna give you information on how you can vote for her to be the next Impactor towards the end of the end of the show. So stay tuned for that. But you say something that really takes me back to just 1 year ago, because you say you are no longer letting your past be dictating your future. And that was the title of the book anthology that I did this time last year. We launched a book last year called You Are Unstoppable, Moving from Past to Purpose. And it speaks just to that. You know, we're no longer letting our past hold us hostage. We're using our past to fuel our purpose. And that's what I see you doing today. Would you say that's was a great assessment of what I've been seeing you do lately?
Yes, it is. You know, I didn't know it was my purpose, and I didn't know that that was the plan for me until my grandbaby was born. And, you know, that's the end of the story, but I guess I'll share it. But I have my grandbaby, my first grandbaby was born with an oxygen deprivation, and she's got a lot of disability. She has severe brain damage. She's blind and deaf. She doesn't hold her temperature. She can't suck or swallow. She has a feeding tube. And for the first few months of her life, I would hold her and felt such a disconnection. I felt so much guilt over me. And then one day I realized it was because I was letting my past convince me that it was my fault, that that was my punishment, because the date that she was born is a very relevant date. I'm sure we'll go back and talk about the story, but the date she was born is a very, very relevant date to my story. And so I was just convinced that this was my doing and that this was my punishment. And then I realized how ridiculous that was, that God doesn't work that way, number one. And number two is that I had to come to realize I was strong. I had lived through that already. This was, 9 years post. And so I was still letting that stuff convince me that I was weak and that I wasn't worthy or deserving or lovable. And then that's when it all turned around for me. When Eliana was born, that's when I made the decision, you know what? Nope, we're going to move forward. And God just has laid a yellow brick road down for me ever since. Ever since I opened my eyes to what his plan was for me, he's laid it down for me.
And I love that. And it looks like, so I knew about one, but it looks like you actually had two defining moments in your life. And it's so good to know that everybody that I've come in contact with that has an opportunity to be on the show or that I talk to, they all can relate to a defining moment. Some of those defining moments have been great defining moments. Some of them have been painful defining moments, but yet a defining moment as well.
Right.
So let's as we jump into, well, before we jump into that, let me ask you, what made you decide to write the book, What Goes Up?
I actually wrote the book while I was sitting in jail awaiting my arraignment, my sentencing. And my daughter had written me a letter and she said, Mama, you have to forgive yourself. What's happened was an accident. She said, I want you to write everything down and just let it go. Pray on it, let it go. Now, mind you, my daughter was 18 at the time. I had just missed her high school graduation because I was incarcerated. But see, my kids, they loved me. They loved me unconditionally. They were angry, but they never stopped loving or praying for their mama to come home. And so I decided that day that I wanted to live. And I've never been suicidal, but I felt so guilty for being alive. So that's the day I decided I wasn't going to just exist. I was going to live again. And I started writing. And the writing is what I believe is the therapy that actually saved my life.
Okay. And so, and it was kind of a toss up for me on which way I wanted to ask the two questions, because I started talking about the defining moment, which led to you writing in prison, which led to this becoming the book. So let's just take them back, not all the way back, but let's take them to that point where the defining moment first happened in your life. And that was that fateful day of September 18th, 2007. Tell us a little bit about that, as much as you feel that you want it. We're not going to give the whole book away because we want them to get the book, but tell them a little bit about that.
Well, like you mentioned when you read my bio, Terrence, I had gotten into, it's all about our choices and us respecting the choices in our life. And I've never blamed anyone else for the choices I've made. No one made me do any things I did. But things in your life happen and it puts you in a certain state of mind, and depression takes over after the adultery and my marriage after 10 years had broken apart. I became really depressed and insecure because I was feeling like he cheated on me because I wasn't enough. Something must have been wrong with me. I wasn't good enough. So I carried that around with me for years. I think there's still a part of me that struggles with some of that. And so I was just searching for some loyalty. I was searching for anything that I knew would be loyal to me. And unfortunately, I made a choice one day. I made the choice and I did my first line of cocaine at 31 years old. And I was a mother of two, educated. I was in medical school. So like you said, my dream of being a surgeon was coming true. And I made that choice, and it just took me down very hard because I knew nothing about addiction, never been around it, wasn't educated about it. So September 18th rolled around, and it was a day that I was in the wrong place, doing the wrong things with the wrong people, and I was attacked and robbed and lost control of my car and had a car accident, and someone's dead because of it. And so I ended up in jail. When I came to, my mother was leaning over me, sobbing. I had no idea I had killed anyone. I had no idea. My mother's actually the one that had to tell me because I said, let's go, Mom, let's go. I'm fine. Let's go. I knew I'd been in a wreck. And she said, you can't go. Don't you know what's happened? And I went to reach up to give my mom a hug to console her. And I felt that angry, cold metal around my wrist, that handcuff. I didn't know what had happened. And so I went to jail, from the hospital, I went to jail and slept for about 3 days because it takes time when you've been out 4 or 5 days sleep deprived. And it's like I woke up feeling guilty with every single breath that I took, Terrence. I didn't feel I deserved to be alive. I didn't know for sure if I wanted to live or even how to live anymore without the cocaine. So that was a defining moment for me because I was in a place where I didn't know what was happening, and I felt I was completely out of control. Even now that I was no longer doing the drugs, I mean, it's obviously it's still my body, but I still felt my life was out of my control because now my life was in the judicial system.
Yeah.
So, like I said, that day that my daughter wrote me the letter and I decided I wanted to live again, that's the day I woke up. And that's the day I started making the steps and healing and doing the things I needed to do to live, not just exist.
And we're talking to Mistie Layne. She is the author of the powerful book, What Goes Up? How to Overcoming Your Worst to Live Your Best. It is a great read. You guys will definitely give you information on how you can purchase a copy of your book and also help her in her pursuit to becoming the next impactor. And we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But let's move forward. Because you threw out a lot of metaphors in living this life that you went through, these the seemingly perfect marriage, family, two girls, about to become a surgeon, and as according to your bio, you still are working in nuclear medicine right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
I had gotten my nuclear medicine degree before I had applied to medical school. I had worked on that degree ahead of time. So I had that in place. And I was able to, the way God has graced my life, I was able to salvage my medical license, which is yet another miracle. And I recently had to defend it again because things from your past keep coming up, and things from 15 years ago recently came up, and I had to face the Texas Medical Board twice this year to defend my license. And once again, I've been blessed, and I'm able to practice still.
Well, you know what? There you go. And just like that, another metaphor comes up. Without that new test, There's nothing to add to that new testimony. So you just got some, you
Yeah,
just stuff,
right.
you have loads and loads of unfortunate material, but you have material that is going to serve you well right now as you move into this new phase of making an impact on the lives of others. So while I'm sorry that you have to go through it, we have to go through in order to grow through. And so how have you grown since that defining moment in 2007?
Oh, wow. Grown so many ways. I think one of the biggest ways that I've grown, well, there's two equally big ways. One is that I've realized I had to forgive all the people that had hurt me and that I needed to forgive myself as well. And that was a big component of it, is learning just all around forgiveness. And also understanding that just because I had lived through some things, it didn't make me that bad person anymore. I did some horrific things while I was under the influence of cocaine. I won't deny it, and I'm very honest in my book about all those things, as you've seen. But I also, Terrence, looking back now that I've gone through it, not to minimize it, but it's like I've already gone through it. So to me, I'm done. Like I'm through it. I'm a winner of it. So I almost feel blessed that I was chosen to go through that journey, because before I went through it, I was very, I don't want to say like really judgmental, but I was a little bit judgmental because I would see women with a black eye and I would think to myself, she's so stupid. She's so weak. Why she let a man hit on her like that?
Yeah,
Girl, don't you know that's not love? Until I found myself with those black eyes in a position where too afraid to leave. Um, I have so much more compassion and empathy now. I'm educated. And I think that's extremely important when we walk in the shoes, then we become an authority on it and we can help someone else. So it's not so hard for them.
absolutely. And I did read that part in the book where you actually felt like you had a little sense of arrogance in you, because it's almost like if we've never been through the experience ourselves, it's really easy for us to be on the outside looking in and say, oh, I would never do that, or I'll
Right.
never allow that to happen to me, or as you said in the book, just go. And many of abused and distressed and depressed people will tell you that it isn't that easy. Sometimes you love the enemy that you know more than the unknown outside of that enemy. And did you find that to be the case once you went into your addiction and your depression and self-doubt? Did you find yourself being more comfortable in the negative situations than facing what might have come next if you'd walked away?
I don't think I even gave it much thought, to be honest. Once the addiction, the addiction is progressive. So people might say, oh, well, I can smoke crack on the weekends. Well, sure you can. But there will be a day where the weekends are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, closer together. And then eventually you're going to get to the point where I was after 10 years of it, where I could hardly get through a 10-minute shower without taking a hit off of my crack pipe because it was that addictive.
Wow.
So the Never Say Never chapter is because I realize I have lived through it now. Terrence, there are things that I ended up doing that I thought I would never be able to do. And it's all about education, because I want people to understand, especially kiddos, college, young kids, if you want to go to a party and get high, I want you to understand what you're signing up for, because there's a truth to it. A lot of people sugarcoat. They don't really tell you all the ins and outs about really what goes on with addiction. And so my whole thing is I want to start a transparency movement, because if someone had told me all of the things that they did, if I'd have known that, see what happened is I was like, I felt like I was a monster because I was doing all these horrific things. And I'm thinking, I must be just a horrible human being because I wasn't hearing about the other crack addicts that were doing that. I felt like it was just me. So when we share these stories and let people know the drugs can take us to those places, we don't feel quite, it's not so much we are the monster. It shifts to the drug as the monster. And I think it would help. I'm really all about education because I think that's what we need to teach with addiction. We aren't the monsters. It's the drug that is making you that person.
I love it. I love it. We're talking to Mistie Layne. She's the author of the book, What Goes Up, on the Unstoppable Stories show. We've got some comments in the comments section. I want to throw them back up so you get a chance to see them. Arlene Collins Wilson says, I honor you, Mistie, for being brave enough to share your story. And thank you. Thank you, Arlene, for sharing that. And she says that God will allow us to go through a situation where we had no compassion to, and yes, you said it, that he'll allow you to go through it so that it will teach you something on the other side. And what I love, that not only did it give you the manuscript for this book, Mistie, it gave you a 4-step method to help others cope with their situations and regain the hope, trust, and respect and accountability for their lives. So let's take a couple of minutes to talk about that 4-step method that you talk about in the book called COPE. What do those 4 things stand for? And let's get a little bit of insight into each one of them.
Okay, sure. And this just sort of came about on its own. I didn't sit down and say, let me devise this method to get people through it. Someone asked me what day, what did you do? And this just kind of came out on its own. So, it's almost like meant to be. So the C in COPE, it stands for confront, because what I did and what worked for me is I confronted my fears. I confronted the people that hurt me. I told them they hurt me. I confronted the people and asked them to forgive me, the people that I hurt. So I confronted all those fears because shame blocks a lot of that healing that should be taking place. The O stands for optimize. Like I said earlier, once we've gone through something, Terrence, we become an authority on it. Once we've survived it and outlived it, we become an authority on it. So I believe we need to optimize on all those life experiences and use them to educate others. And the P is for push through, because when you start doing, for me, this is how it worked. When I started doing all this deep, intensive healing, and I used the writing as therapy, and I started confronting all these people that had hurt me and all these things, it was like Satan was right there, like you're unstoppable, like your show, always something wants to hold it back or keep it from happening. So this is the time you have to push through everything. You have to push through, you have to keep your faith, you have to know what's on the other side, is that you can embrace the E, the new beautiful you that God has created and allowed you to become. And that new beautiful person is a person that loves themselves, that honors themselves, that has compassion, that's humble, that has empathy, and that can go out and be strong enough and brave enough to be transparent so that we can educate people so they don't have to live through what you do, and so that no one else has to die.
And so those are beautiful, but and you've probably heard it as you've gone around and you spoke about your method to other audiences, that sometimes those things are easier said than done. So I want to ask you, I want to dig a little bit deeper into Mistie's life and say, how did you confront your fears? Who were those people that you actually confronted, or what were those things that you actually confronted that you were fearing?
Well, like I talk about in my book, and I go into great detail on these 4 steps. I give examples of each, but it's not even necessarily, Terrence, about you having to specifically talk to that person. It's getting it out of you. I use writing as a medium for me. So I would write a letter to my ex-husband and just put everything out there, everything I felt. And I mailed it to him. This particular one I mailed to him, I don't think he ever read it. There was a lot of animosity there. But others I wrote and never mailed. But I got it out of me.
Okay.
So, but like with my parents and things, of course, we have talked. That's a really hard situation. And I warn people about that fresh out of recovery, because when you are in an addiction, your family and your friends are in your addiction with you. And when you stop and you go to rehab and you come home and you have all these new tools and this new mindset and this new positive attitude, that's great for you. You see, your family and friends are still in your addiction because they didn't go through that with you. So they still see you as a liar, a manipulator, a schemer. It takes them time and patience. And so what ends up happening is, at first, in your addiction, all our loved one wants to know is, are we safe? always safe. I know when I would go to jail, my mom would be relieved. She would get the best night's sleep because she didn't have to worry, am I alive or am I dead?
Because she knew where
So
you were.
she knew where I was and she knew I was safe. So that's the first emotion that, first thing that our family, our loved ones deal with. The second thing is their anger. Now they know you're safe. Now they feel comfortable that they can be angry now. And all that anger starts coming out on you. And that's why I warn when you're new to recovery to be really careful with this. I ask people to get a mediator, to get a therapist, to find someone that can help in those conversations because oftentimes for me, all it took was just a little bit of their anger on me to send me right back out and get high because I already felt horrible about the things I did on myself because no one can beat us up worse than we can ourselves on the inside. But then to hear the people we love the most telling us what we've done to them on top of that, we're not ready or we don't know how to handle that information. So for me, I would go back to get high again to escape it. So
So
fresh
during
and
those,
new.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to move past that real without asking this question. During your 10 years of cocaine use, were there times where you tried to stop before your defining moments? And what made it? What made you not able to do it those times before?
I'm not sure what didn't allow me to do it. I tried many times. I put myself in. It took me the first year. Like I said, it's progressive. So the first year I was able to still maintain my job, my family, my kids knew something was different, something was wrong. They didn't really know what because this was also after a divorce, so they knew I was depressed. But at about a year, I moved away from. I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I moved a whole state away just to run away from it because I had tried to quit, tried to quit, tried to quit. So I called my family and I told them what was going on and I asked them to put me in rehab. So I put myself in rehab many, many times. I begged, I prayed, I pleaded, I made bargains, I did everything I could. For me, I was just never successful. I might do good 3, 4 months. One time I had a year in, a whole year. And then all it took was me going to Walmart one day, seeing a drug dealer that I knew behind me buying diapers, and him saying, "Here's my new phone number." And I said, "I don't need it. I'm good." And he slipped it in my Walmart bag as I walked off.
Right.
Well, I'm thinking, I don't need it. I'm good. He planted that seed. I got on the interstate. Within 10 minutes, I had the number in my hand and was dialing it on my phone that fast.
That
It
seed of
planted that seed
temptation.
that fast. And it's not anything I pre planned. And it's not anything I even consciously was aware I was doing. It was just like, it just happened. I mean, that's how it happens. It happens just like that.
So would you say that defining moment of 2007 was that the catalyst that really allowed you to finally confront your fears and move forward from that cycle that you had been going through previous?
I think for me, it was a whole confluence of things because I was in a very abusive domestic violence relationship. I mean, I had been held hostage by him for 3 days with our infant son. I mean, it was a very volatile situation that I knew was getting worse and I knew my life was in danger. I felt like it was. So for me, having just killed someone, obviously, and also being incarcerated for a length of time to get me away from my abuser so I could start understanding and freeing myself from that. So I think it was a whole confluence of things that all came together at the right time for me. And it just allowed me that time to heal.
And,
Because addiction is about filling voids inside of us. We're all searching for something. For
yeah.
me, I believe addiction is something's wrong somewhere inside. And if we don't ever, tap into that, we're always going to be searching for something to cover that.
Yeah. And addiction, it usually gets a bad rap because when you think about addiction, you think about drugs or you think about other vices, other negative things. But people are addicted to chocolate. People are addicted to horror movies. People are addicted to things, and like you said, the addiction comes because we're trying to replace something with something else. And for you, that something else was replacing the depression, replacing the self-doubt, replacing probably having to think about the devastation of your life at that point that you went through. So I understand that, but God often And you say in the book that you hit rock bottom, but God often puts us in a place where we can't go anyplace else. We can't look to anybody else. We can't lean on anybody else, only so that we can recognize that he was there all the time. And he was the only thing that you need. And we don't mind talking about God here on the Unstoppable
Yeah.
Story Show. So go ahead and if you want to expound upon it, go ahead. But I think just from reading the book, it sounds like your rock bottom was where he needed you to be so that you could hear him talk to you. And he penned this masterpiece while he had your attention. Does that sound about right?
Absolutely. God, your teacher's always quiet during your test, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I was being tested, and it was up to me at that time in my life how I was going to go with it. I mean, I had a decision to make. I was either going to let everything that had happened kill me too, and then my kids were going to be motherless, or I was going to turn it around, do what I needed to do to heal, and then pull myself up, which is what I chose to do. I decided I wanted to live that day, and that's what I started doing. But I want to go back real quick and say something what you said, because about the addiction, I say it in my book because I just think it's hilarious. I always say my very first addiction was Little Debbie zebra cakes, because it's true. Because growing up in the Texas beauty pageant system, I learned very, very early, like maybe 5 or 6 years old, the power that winning gave us. I learned that power and I thrived on it. And so that whole perfectionism thing came into play with me. And any little thing, if I didn't get voted room favorite, I internalized that way more than a normal kid would, because I had to strive to be perfect at everything. So I very early on used those zebra cakes was my drug of choice, way back when. So even younger in life, as a young teen, I was dealing with all these issues. Didn't even know it. Thought I had a great life. Didn't even realize I had issues.
And that's I tell the story that God plants something deep inside of us even before we were born, and that's that seed, that's that passion, that's that inspiration, that's that purpose. But he doesn't tell us anything about that seed that he planted in us, because if he told us, then it's kind of like when you go to Walmart and you buy a plant and you really don't appreciate the plant that you bought. But if you buy the seeds, and you have to put the seeds in the ground, and you have to lay the moss, and sometimes you got to lay the manure, and sometimes you got to water it, and sometimes you got to pull the weeds out every now and then. If you've got to till the land and you've got to nurture those seeds, then you appreciate what comes out of it. And you had to go through some dirt. You had to go through some mud over this lifetime of journey that you've gone through recently. But look at you now. Look at the flower. Look at the rose that has come up out of the earth after going through all that dirt and after having to deal with a lot of things that were beating you down and maybe even holding you back from who you are right now. So I appreciate the beautiful rose that's on my show right now.
Thank you. And I would say to anyone listening, as long as that sun is shining, you can grow too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's power through these other three, because then I want to switch gears and talk about what you're doing right now. So you confronted your fears, and Arlene is saying, yes, yes, yes. She says breakthrough is painful, but but so worth it. Absolutely, Arlene. Thank you so much for those comments. We left off with confront your fears, but you came through. You confronted your fears. You started writing. You started finding yourself coming out on the other side after that that second defining moment with the letter from your daughter or your granddaughter.
No, the letter from my daughter started my first one, and then the second one is when my grandbaby was born, and I realized that I was letting my past hold me back. So my first defining moment was when I decided I wanted to live and not just exist. My second moment is when I realized I had a purpose, and that was to move forward and educate with transparency about my life.
And then you started optimizing your experiences. So how have you optimized all these. What, when you say optimize your experience, what do you mean by that? Would you suggest that someone who's watching this show do now to optimize their experience?
Number one is write it down, share it, tell, here's a good example. And I love my mom. I'm not doing this as a negative thing, but I love my mom. It's just generations are different. Growing up, I thought my mom was perfect because she never told me any of her faults. She never told me anything she had done wrong because she wanted me to be good. So she wanted to portray she was good at everything. But what that did is it made me feel like when I did something bad that I was, again, horrible. So optimize your experience. Like I'll go into the whole abortion thing. You know, some people had that and it's shameful and it hurts. But the way I look at that, Terrence, by optimizing my experiences, I share with my daughters what I went through. I explained to them, I told them what I did, so that if they ever find themselves in that situation, they are educated. They can make an educated decision. They understand instead of being blindsided like I was with things and feeling like I was so horrible. Educate, optimize your experience by sharing it.
I love it. And I think the best way that any of us can grow is by hearing the stories of other people. But far too many people, and maybe this was what your mom was thinking was the right thing to do at the time. We introduce ourselves as our representative, not as our authentic self. Nobody wants to know about the skeletons that are in my closet, in my own mind. Those are just for me. Those are not for anyone else to see. So let me portray somebody else outwardly while I fight with my own shame, my own guilt, my own disappointment, my own embarrassment. And you keep it all locked inside. And Misty, it turns into its own disease that starts to fester inside of you. And then people wonder why they're sick all the time. They wonder why they're depressed all the time. And it's like what you said. It's because you haven't taken the step of writing it down, getting it out of your head, getting it out of your body so that you can put it in a place where you can release it. So I love that. How else can they optimize their experiences other than you mentioned writing it down? What else can they do to optimize their experience?
Here's the thing, Terrence, you have to, and this is something I'm learning through my mentors and I have a coach that I'm working with, but here's what you have to realize is that if you're feeling all those things, the shame, the guilt, if you're still in that place, then it's still about you. You're still worried about you. And what I've learned is that once I shift that energy and I start telling my story with transparency to others, it's no longer about me because I'm already through it. It's not about me anymore. It's about the message and the story. And once you do that, once you put your hand out and you help someone pull them up from the place they're in, even if you're just a little bit above them, if you're in a place to help pull someone up and you do it, it's the best feeling in the world. It gives you energy. It gives you power. You feel so alive. And it takes that negative energy of you looking at yourself because now you're focused on helping someone else. And it's the best. That is the best policy. If you think you've got it bad, and most of us have been in places where we did have it, or we do have it bad now. If you think you have it bad now, look around you, find someone that has it just a little bit worse than you, and you reach out your hand and you put your time and energy on helping them instead of putting it on yourself and ridiculing and putting yourself down. Because through that service, you will heal.
I got you. So, but you know what? Even still, I'm sure in the beginning, was it painful to tell your story?
Oh, absolutely. It was very painful. It's still painful. I mean, when you were introducing me, I had tears in my eyes just hearing it from someone else. Almost like I'm so far from it now, and I'm trying to shift so far away from it being about me that to hear it again, it's almost like, wow. I went through some stuff,
Right. You're like, who was that person, huh?
Exactly. And after rebuilding my life, when I've come back, it takes time, like I said earlier, and patience, but you can rebuild trust and respect, especially in my workplace. I mean, I was practicing nuclear medicine and there was a time, and I'm just going to be transparent and say it, it's in my book. There was a time where my addiction was so bad, I would inject a patient with radiation. I'd run out to the parking lot, take a hit, go back. and do this and then go inject another patient. Or I would go in the bathroom at the hospital and lay down on the floor of the bathroom just to shut my eyes for a few minutes. And I would end up falling asleep in there for an hour till people were banging on the door. So, I mean, it had gotten so progressive. So to go from that place where I've been asked to leave, I was a supervisor of a hospital one time in Austin, and had the drug dealer calling my hospital pager all hours of the night constantly, and they caught on to it, and I had to be escorted out of the hospital. My keys left that day on the spot. To go from that to who would have ever thought I would ever be able to rebuild trust and respect again in my work field, much less be sought after, and for people to be that forgiving and understanding and realize that we aren't that person anymore. I mean, that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
So how do you encourage people in their own lives where it still may be painful for them to tell their story? How do you encourage them to push through the pain and continue to tell their story just like you are?
Well, just like I said, find someone that has it a little bit worse than you and focus on them. Help them pull up to the level you are at. And when you do that, you're going to automatically elevate yourself because you start feeling self-worth. Even though you feel like you have no value to offer anyone, you do. Because there's always people that are suffering more than you that you can help. There's people that are going through, like for instance, I had a patient one time, her husband had gotten in a car accident with many, many, many surgeries. And I mean, he was just devastated. Been 4 years now. He feels like he's angry at the world. Why me? Why me? Why me? But he can still walk. He's been through surgery after surgery, but he's angry. And I told her, she's like, what can I do to help him? I said, well, he's the perfect person 4 years out. How many people get in a wreck every day that are in the starting place he was 4 years ago, and they feel helpless and hopeless, like they'll never walk again. They're not going to live through it. They hurt so bad. He can be that person now 4 years later, even though he's angry now, he still succeeded it. He's walking. He's lived through it. He's healthy now. So he's got so much he can give back. And that's what I mean. You've got to find those people that you can share and optimize your experiences with. In doing that, you will naturally elevate.
And we're talking to Mistie Layne. She's dropping some great nuggets, some wonderful motivation here on the Unstoppable Stories show. As we're coming down towards the end of the hour, we want to make sure that you guys are still tuning in. Yeah, it goes fast when you're talking. And here's the thing. When you push through your pain, you know what, time just seems to not matter anymore. It's when you can't push through your pain. It's when you keep that pain locked inside that it feels like, you know how when you have a throbbing headache and it just won't go away and you can just feel it and it feels like the minutes are hours. And it's because you're holding on to something. But when you push through the pain and you start to let it flow, it's kind of like that river running downhill. It just gets faster and easier, and the obstacles move out of the way. Yeah, there may be rocks and mountains and boulders when the river first goes running down that hill, but soon the rocks start getting smooth because the pain becomes less and less and less. And then you have statements like you just said, like, you didn't even recognize who I was describing when I first started talking about you. And that's because you're practicing what you're preaching. You are confronting your fears. You're optimizing your experiences. You've learned how to push through the pain, not because it's all about you, but now it's all about somebody else. And as a result of that, you have embraced your past. And was it a wonderful feeling to be able to embrace your past now?
Absolutely. To be able to go from blame and anger to a place of gratefulness, it's amazing. Because when I first wrote the book, Terrence, and I said I was incarcerated, so everything was new and fresh, and the book was written with a very dark tone because I blamed everybody for everything in my life, and I was angry. When I decided to release my book 12 years later, I had to go back and revisit it because now, having pushed through and grown, I wasn't that angry person. I realize now that I can't blame anybody for my choices but myself. So now it's more about accountability, responsibility, and gratitude, because everything I went through, I mean, there's so many things that could have gone so differently in my life that I learned to focus on the positives and the things that I could be grateful for instead of dwelling on the negative things. Because like I said, there's always people that have it worse off. So, I mean, it was a great feeling to go from anger to gratitude.
Wow. And now you have taken it to the next level and you've pushed through your pain and now you're making it your mission to become the next impactor. So tell us a little bit about what that is all about, being the next impactor.
The Next Impactor is a competition that was developed by Lauren Michaels Harris and Jeff Levin. To try to bring people together that had like-minded people that were out, doing philanthropy work, that just wanted to do good and be better versions of ourselves. And by doing that, hopefully other people would follow suit. So this is a competition where people all over the world are involved in it. They've narrowed it down to the top 50. So now we have 5 teams of 10. We're working my particular team, I'm on Team Cheryl. We've chosen disabled, but not really nonprofit. We're focusing all of our attention right now at this segment of the competition in fundraising and sponsoring and trying to get them the help and the recognition and get special equipment in for their gym that they could use and things like that. This is going to go all the way through till August. That's 4th of July. We weeded down to 25 contestants, 5 from each team. And then in August sometime, there will be a one winner of who could make the biggest impact with their message in the world by whatever means. And I'm not sure what tools we're going to have to use. I don't know what the medium is going to be, but I just know we have to be creative and we're trying to build a following for ourselves by getting the votes, because the last 5 contestants left will be up to America, sort of like American Idol or one of those shows. America will vote the one winner.
That is fantastic. So
Awesome.
why is it so important to you to be the next impactor?
Because this is God's mission. This is not my mission. This is not Mistie's mission. I feel, like I said, that I was specially chosen to go through everything I went through for this day today. And I feel like you said earlier, seeds are planted in us way before we're born, and you were naming off all the things. And the only thing that could come to mind, I kept thinking strength. I'm a very strong person. I've been told that my whole life. Now, during that 10 years with cocaine, I was weak as could be. My strength didn't matter to cocaine. But now looking back, it was necessary that I went through those things because I am strong on this side of it to push it and go out there and impact the world, because we have to learn to be transparent, educate by living and telling our experiences, optimizing and letting other people know. And I think if we can impact the world with that worldwide, how many people would have this? Think about the freedom you would have just in your own head every day, how we sit and we put ourselves down in our own head every day, or we call ourselves, you have a failure, or you do bad on a test, and we just criticize ourselves so badly, or we make a poor choice, or whatever it is. We beat ourselves up, but if we can all learn to be transparent and lift each other up instead of, so I say educate, so that I said be transparent so that we can educate people and we can judge less and mentor more. So with education, we can lift each other up instead of judging each other.
That is so important. So how can our audience help you on your quest to becoming the next impactor?
Well, I would love it if you would go to thenextimpactor.com. There's a gray bar for voting. You hit the gray bar, you type in, it'll ask for your email, but they don't spam you. This has been going on for months. You don't get spam email from it. It's just an accounting tool. And then you'll see me right now. I believe I'm in 4th place in the voting out of 50. So you just click on my picture. I'm in a light lilac colored sweater and vote for me. You can vote every 12 hours. And so it'd be amazing if I could get some followers to start voting with me, and let's do this together. Let's change the world together. Also have a Facebook group called Transparency Movement that I invite anyone to join in as well.
Well, we will definitely do our part to help you on your quest to becoming the next impactor. We're going to be replaying this on our Facebook pages, all my Facebook pages, as well as YouTube. So I appreciate that. But guess what? I know somebody's going to go vote for you, but I know somebody is going to want to have a deeper conversation with you. They'll want to have a more intimate conversation with you. So how can they get in contact with you? Maybe they want to purchase your book. Maybe they want to see what your next events are, or maybe they just want to shoot you a message of encouragement. How can they best get in contact with you, Mistie?
Everything is Mistie Layne. So I have my website is mistielayne.com. I have my email is mistielayne@mistielayne.com. My Instagram is Mistie_Layne. Everything's pretty much Mistie Layne. It's pretty easy to find me.
Yeah.
Facebook is Mistie Layne. Messenger me. It's always a good way, but I encourage you to go on to my website and reach out to me there if you want to have a consultation and just speak to me one-on-one. I always encourage that. I love that.
And I love the unique way you spell your name. I had to make sure I was spelling it right all the time. MistieLayne, MistieLayne.com. Well, I appreciate you. I'm so glad that you reached out to me and wanted to be a guest on the show. I'm glad to have met you. I know if you're hanging out with Lauren Harris and the crew of The Power of We, that you are definitely and Misfit Nation, you are definitely part of a powerful group of people. I wish you the best. I want you to keep looking up, because if you keep looking up, you'll keep going up. And I want you to recognize that, you know what you have gone through has brought you to this point, and the growth that you have shown us and told us about on the show is going to inspire somebody else who's watching you. I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's somebody on this show. I don't know if there's somebody you might have saw while you were in traffic on your way home to get to this show, but you are making a difference in somebody's life, and that's what makes you unstoppable. And I'm glad you came to spend some time on the Unstoppable Stories show. Would you come back again sometime?
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important we share these broadcasts that you do, because like you said, you never know who that one person is going to be. It might be a person fourth down the road that got shared down the line, that it might have been meant for that person all along.
Absolutely.
So it's just important. And I appreciate you so much and everything that you do, Terrence.
Well, thank you so much. So yeah, I'm going to put you back down in the green room, but don't hang up. But again, this is Mistie Layne, you guys. The book is called What Goes Up? Uncovering Your Worst to Live Your Best. Go to MistieLayne.com. You can order your copy of the book. You can see the other things that Mistie is doing, and you can be a part of her unstoppable movement towards becoming the next impactor at thenextimpactor.com. We'll put that stuff in the comments so that you can get it if you're watching the replay. But once again, Mistie Layne, thank you so much for being on the Unstoppable Stories show.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Mistie Layne, you guys. Again, go check her out at MistieLayne.com. Check her out on Facebook and all of the social media. Just look under Mistie Layne, MistieLayne. All right, you guys, that's a wrap. Another Unstoppable show. Thank you guys for joining us. We always thank you for being a part of the Unstoppable Story show. And once again, if there was anything you heard on this show that was a blessing to you, we would love for you to be a blessing to the Unstoppable Stories show. This show works on your donations and works on your viewership. So we accept any donations to keep us on the air. You can simply send a donation to paypal.me/unstoppable coaching. And hey, maybe you want to be a guest on the Unstoppable Story show, just like Mistie was, to share your unstoppable story. Well, here's all you got to do. All you got to do is shoot me an email to info@unstoppablecoaching.com. That's info@unstoppablecoaching.com. Send me a little blurb about why you want to share your unstoppable story here on the Unstoppable Story show. And guess what? Maybe you may be the next guest on the Unstoppable Stories show, where we talk to ordinary people with unstoppable stories. And as always, until next time, wherever you are in the world today, you know what I say, don't just make it a great day, make it an unstoppable day. See you next week.